until our inevitable breakup. It's the Extended Play Podcast with Ian Tank.
Welcome to the Extended Play Podcast with Ian Tank. Today's topic is separation. We're going to talk about breakups, band breakups in particular. I'm not going to get into my past breakups, right? That would be a little bit awkward. Yeah, I don't think I want to get time. I mean, we do have time, but I think the missus would not like hearing that later on.
Yeah, true.
What happens when bands break up? Why do they break up? Where do they go from there? How challenging is it from a creative standpoint to work with other people so closely? We're going to look at it, and one of the cool things today is that we get to look at this from both the inside and the outside. Obviously, Tank and I, big fans of music, and that's our experience with it, right? We've seen bands break up, and we've got pissed off about it, or you see it coming, right? Or bands have to dissolve, right, because a member of the band dies or something,
right?
But today on the show we have Rob from 1001 Album Complaints, and Rob has got an insider's perspective because he actually is a musician, which it seems sort of irresponsible that we've taken this long to have an actual musician on the show. We're really good about complaining about musicians, but also praising them, right? Mostly praising.
Yeah.
But we actually haven't had someone who's got the insider perspective. So we wanted to welcome Rob to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm a big fan of the show. Appreciate you having me over. Excited to get in and complain. And as the name of my show, 1001 Album Complaints, implies, we love complaining and nitpicking about the things we love, aka music as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, which album do you hate the most or enjoy complaining about the most?
You know, they're all my children.
Right. I hate them all equally.
Yeah. No, we just like the minutia of it.
Yeah.
I have the utmost respect, and I think all my co-hosts do, for anyone who puts themselves out there, attempts to do something creative and artistic and vulnerable, writing songs, etc. It's really challenging on a number of levels, and it's certainly hard to be good and to get onto a list like the 1001 albums you must hear before you die, which is what we draw from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that said, there's just a lot of silliness involved too, and we know from having been in the studio, and we know just from analyzing records, you listen closely on headphones, you hear a lot of little silly nuances, interesting production decisions that are worth calling out.
Absolutely. And you guys are very well researchers, which is something I'm impressed about the show, is that how much that adds to your understanding and your enjoyment or your lack of enjoyment of a record, is that you get into how they got to the studio, what the recording process was actually like. I gotta imagine
Absolutely.
That's just as fun as listening to the music sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
How
and
it's
it
made.
really helps, as you're saying, it really helps contextualize the music and helps you enjoy it more. And so that's been one of the great things for us as the hosts, is having that opportunity to dive deep and learn some of these stories. Even bands, we've talked many bands and records to death throughout our lives because we're longtime friends as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you still learn new things when you really get in there and start researching, even about bands you might have loved. So yeah, that's been a ton of fun and helps put the music in context.
For sure. Yeah, Tank and I are both big fans of music documentaries. And in fact, I think that's going to be an upcoming topic just for that reason, especially when it's around the recording of an album, right? It's just so cool to get that insider's perspective. For sure.
Absolutely. I could watch those all day.
Yeah.
It has so much more weight when you see what's behind it.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times, at least for me, it can turn a bad album to a good one.
Yeah.
When you understand where it was coming from and why it happened.
Yeah. I know I've said on the show multiple times that I'm not a Rush fan, but I love that documentary. I found it so fascinating, and it endeared me to that band and want to learn more. And I think, that's a fun experience to have too, right? If you're open to it.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned a moment ago, our topic today is separation. We're going to talk about band breakups. And at the end of our show, we'll have another edition of our playlist challenge. But now let's get started. Rob, tell me a little bit about what has been your experience with band breakups. Is it often mutual? Is it have you had sort of acrimonious breakups? What is that situation? Has it depended?
Yeah, it depends. I should start out by saying that I've been through a couple of band breakups. They come in multiple flavors.
Yeah.
But we're talking about unsuccessful mini touring bar bands.
Sure.
that I cared a heck of a lot about, and where the emotions were certainly running high, to be clear. And I think emotionally they are kind of a microcosm for what's going on at the highest level, whether you're talking about Van Halen or Pink Floyd, just to some degree. So that's where I'm going to kind of speak from.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's rarely mutual in the sense that it's usually instigated by one person or two people fighting over some kind of control. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it because it's a complex topic because you're dealing with human relationships.
Yeah. Right. And I think human relationships are challenging enough, right?
Sure.
So you take any interaction, whether it's family or coworkers, friends. So you take all the nuances and pitfalls that come with that. And then you throw in the vulnerability of being creative on top of that.
Yeah.
Right. And it just makes for this super volatile, combustible.
Yeah, for sure.
I am curious though. So what did you play different instruments and have different roles, or were you always the same instrument in each band?
I was the same instrument in each band, and perhaps more importantly, I was the same role, which is sort of the boss of the band, the leader.
Okay.
Who usually that person is the main songwriting force, but I think more importantly, they're the biggest organizational force who kind of runs rehearsals and semi-manages the band, especially small bands. And I have a theory actually that I was going to get into with you guys, that every band needs one of these people. Bands are not democracies.
No. Okay.
A leader is required, a benevolent dictator, hopefully.
Sure.
No, I get it. Which instrument do you play?
I play guitar primarily, and I sing.
Okay. All right. So you're the probably the least replaceable guy anyway, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you coming into it as the person that's getting the band together? Typically,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. It's your brainchild to begin with. So you have a different kind of ownership over it to begin with.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that you're hinting at one of the big challenges is getting people on the same page. I often relate it to in my 9-to-5 work life. I'm a sort of a corporate leader and have direct reports and things like that, run teams. And there's a lot of similarities to leadership within a band. But one of the big differences is this is when you're in a small time band, there's very little monetary incentive.
Right.
You don't have the carrot or the stick, really.
Sure.
It's all based on hazy notions of glory that you're going to be finding at the next gig. So that makes it more challenging. You can't exactly put someone on a performance improvement plan with a threat to fire them, nor can you offer them a promotion or a raise or a bonus. And yeah, that makes the leadership aspect a little bit more fiddly. You kind of have to motivate through other means.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I've tried to put Tank on a pip a number of times. It has not taken.
You can't fire me.
But no, I mean,
exactly.
We found podcasting as a creative pursuit to be the same way. It's sort of, you have sort of nebulous goals and ideas of what success might mean. And some people will tell you this is success. And then defining what success means for you, it's tricky. And somebody has to take a leadership role there and say, this is what we're doing.
I'm just picturing a mental image now of two guys in an office, like in a cubicle. One guy's got a bass strapped on, and you're giving him his annual review.
Too many root notes, bro.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, your tone. I got to be honest, you did not meet expectations.
Gonna need a little more foam next to those strings.
Yeah. I mean, but the reason I asked about the instrument is I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, as an outsider, I feel like there's a almost pretty clear stratification of quote unquote importance to the band and the public's eyes. I tend to think that the vocalist is probably the most irreplaceable. And then you get to guitar, maybe, then drums, then bass. I feel sorry for bassists that are like, because to be honest, with the exception of maybe Primus or Red Hot Chili Peppers or, very few bands, it's like, if the bassist goes, everyone just shrugs and go, oh, whatever. Okay. Right. But if the vocalist goes, they stop listening to the band.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, the vocals are what people interact with.
Right.
I once heard David Byrne said something to the effect of, I think it's on the liner notes of Stop Making Sense, that music is a trick to make people listen. Lyrics are a trick to make people listen to music longer than they normally would.
Right.
And yeah, I think there's some truth in that. I think you're also talking about the primary songwriting force in a band.
Right.
And so I'm sure we're going to get into that, like how that work, that creative work is distributed or not distributed is a huge factor. And it was really tempting to jump in and just crap on bass players right away, since they are, in fact, failed guitar players.
Right. I mean, come on, 2 less strings, can't go wrong.
But I think that it has more to do with how things tend to fall in line with who writes the songs.
Yeah.
Meaning the guitar tends to be a songwriting instrument. And if you're a vocalist, you are likely to have a bigger hand in, say, writing the lyrics, in addition to connecting with the crowd more, of course. But I'm just saying these things are related.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
from a fan standpoint, I've always found it weird when the lead singer is not the primary songwriter. Like you watching interviews, and we'll get into Oasis because there's a band from our childhood or our prime listening years that obviously breakups and makeups and all that kind of stuff are part of what they do. But yeah, you'd sit down in interviews and you're expecting one person, the singer, to talk about why he wrote this, and he doesn't write a goddamn thing.
Right.
Part of it, right?
Right.
He's the face, and years have shown that there's a reason why he was the singer of that band, right? That there was a certain magic there with when you have one brother writing the songs and the other one singing them, that it doesn't always,
Which, it's funny. I always end up going back to Rush one way or another, which makes it even funnier to me. Like, go back to the beginning of Rush, right?
Yeah.
Getty doesn't write the lyrics.
Right.
Hey, God knows it ain't his voice. Right? So how did they end up with like, hey, you know what? You should sing.
I mean, the best worst option or worst best.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, it is interesting. Well, just to go against that a little bit with the bass player, and this leads us to another alley of why bands break up. Roger Waters from the aforementioned Pink Floyd
Who I hate.
is the primary songwriter.
Yeah.
But for a long period, and Pink Floyd went through a few different modes, right, with Sid Barrett and David Gilmour.
Yeah.
But even in the Dark Side era, when they were rocketing to stardom, Roger Waters was writing most of the material, but he was not the primary lead singer. He felt self-conscious about his voice, even though on balance, I think objectively he has the best voice in the group, certainly the largest range. And then it was later that he started to take more and more vocal control, but also was annoyed that he was relegated behind David Gilmour on guitar, and that's what ultimately broke up the band.
Right. And I'm a big Team Gilmore guy, by the way.
I mean, me too, but you don't think that Waters has an amazing kind of operatic voice when you really get down to it?
Of course. And that's what made it. And I think that some of that tension is probably what drives some of this brilliance too, right?
Sure. Sure.
For sure.
Interband competition.
Absolutely.
Right. Probably pushes them to new heights.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm going to rubber stamp that for sure. When I was in my sort of first band that really mattered to me, which is akin to a first love, and it was all my best friends. And yeah, we were definitely in competition with each other to write the songs, to be up front of the band. There was there was a period where it wasn't clear who was going to be the lead singer. We all sang a bit, and we continued that. But it wasn't clear who was going to be the leader and who was going to be the primary driving force. And I used that as fuel to do more work, which was great.
That's you bring up a really fascinating point to me, is that so often these bands that we love, these are lifelong friends. These are people that have known each other for a long time. And that relationship came baked in when they started the band to begin with. And you got to imagine that's a lot different than bands where you're seeing the 5th or 6th iteration and someone has already taken on someone has decided to form the band. Dave Grohl has said, I'm forming a band. I'm going to pick the people that are going to be in my band, versus these are your buddies from when you were 12 years old.
Right.
Yeah. You're hitting on an important point, I think, which is that distinction makes all the difference. If you're Dave Grohl, like, I'm starting a band, I'm already famous. I was already in a great band.
True.
Right.
This is my band. It's much clearer how the responsibilities lay out from that point. You sign on knowing what you're signing on for. And I think there are other great examples of that. Or, say Jack White puts together a band.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, the record's going to be called Jack White. I'm going to write all the parts. You guys are going to get paid a salary.
Right.
How's that sound?
Yeah.
And you either say yes or no, and that's fine. That's distinct from one person sort of rocketing to stardom within the band and creating that tension.
Yeah. You get like a Maroon 5 type situation, right? Where it becomes, one person becomes the only person people know of the band.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I made it about 15 minutes into the show without mentioning Metallica, which is.
I know you're bugging me, Tony.
I mean, dude, I was trying. I can't hold it in anymore. But that is where my knowledge is deepest of any given band. And I don't think, people have pointed this out in the fan boards, that it's not coincidence that Kirk Hammett has been in the band 40 some years, right? And that he's kind of a hippie-ish Zen, go with the flow.
Okay.
No one else. If you didn't have that kind of personality, you're not surviving with James and Lars for 40 years.
Because just the back and forth between the two?
Kirk is just like, I'm gonna be over here smiling. Tell me when you need a solo. I'm gonna drink some Jamba Juice. Right. But if you had a lead that maybe like a Slash or someone who maybe has more of a spotlight hunger,
yeah, sure,
it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
It needed to be a guy who was like, I don't care if I'm in the background. You guys do you.
Sure.
I'll pop in a solo every now and then.
Okay.
He's the just happy to be there guy.
Yeah.
He's the Ringo of that band. And let me qualify that statement.
That's right.
Because because Pop, Ringo's an amazing drummer.
Sure.
And I'll hear nothing else. But what I mean is, he's just happy to be there. He's just happy-go-lucky, chill guy, excited to be at the rehearsal, and he stays apart from the fray of what I'm sure is Lars and James. And let's be honest, particularly Lars, right?
Right. Lars is undoubtedly the leader of the band. He's the engine. And then James just is like a riff writing machine.
Okay.
And lyric writing machine, I guess.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
It's not really his thing. He's more the riff guy. But Lars is the arranger.
Okay.
And a lot of people shit on his drumming, which, okay, neither here nor there. But they say, let's put someone else in the band. They don't realize that the arrangements of the songs, which is largely what Metallica is famous for, at least in their heyday.
Yeah, sure.
It was Lars. Of
Yeah,
course.
if you have a 10-minute song.
Exactly. So you take the arranger out.
Yeah, sure.
And that doesn't work either.
Yeah, totally.
And then
Here's another little tip. Here's another little tip for your listeners, because this is how I know Lars is in charge of the band without watching any documentaries. Is listen to some of those records and listen for how high the drums are in the mix.
Yeah. I know 72
They're
seasons.
so out in front. That guy is in charge.
It ruined 72 seasons for about a week for me. Someone pointed out, it's like all I hear is hi-hat.
Oh, really?
And then I'm like, Jesus, it's like, tss, tss, tss. I couldn't make it. It took a while for it to fall into the background. But I mean, and actually, I guess I'll just blow my Metallica load right now and get it all out of the way. No pun intended.
Good one,
yeah. No, but I think the one guy that I have the most respect for out of anyone in these type of situations is Jason Newsted. So he just left the band.
Yeah.
He wanted to do a side project and said, I want to do creative, because, he's a bit stifled in Metallica,
Sure,
right?
anyone would be.
And he's like, I want to go do this thing to kind of, and James said no.
Oh, okay.
And he said, okay, then I quit.
Huh.
I mean, and again, imagine leaving that kind of money and fame on the table, right?
And they were his heroes.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it's one of the cases where, he joins the band, went through the hazing.
Yeah, sure.
The whole, the Injustice for All.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to just be that, tour the world, be in the biggest band, and go, okay, I can't have artistic freedom. Bye.
Yeah.
You don't see that
Did
much.
the hazing involve turning the bass fader to literally zero throughout that entire record?
Yeah, I know. That's a whole nother rabbit hole I go down of, interviews with the engineers and how great it sounds. There's a version on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's become like a cottage industry, like remixing Injustice for All.
Right.
It's a shame too, because he did great work on that album. But he just took it and took it and took it and took it all that time.
God.
And then, because that's their grief, right? They're dealing with Cliff and
they've lost their original bassist, right? Tragically.
Yeah,
And,
that's tough.
Yeah.
So big shoes to fill, obviously, relationship wise and playing wise.
Right.
And so now it's like you're entering a really tight knit group of friends.
Yeah.
Right.
And every time they look at you or hear you, they're reminded of their dead friend.
Sure.
Yeah, you're not my right. It sounds like you're not my ex.
And and in that instance, who you probably don't measure up to, chops wise.
Yeah, it's
right.
I think Cliff. You know how I feel about dead musicians, right? It's like whatever rating you give them, you add 30%,
sure. Right?
But Cliff, his classical training and everything.
Sure.
Yeah, they're different animals.
Okay.
Yeah, but certainly no easy task on a good day.
For sure.
Yeah.
One of the things we were talking about very briefly, I mentioned Foo Fighters and Dave Grohl putting a band together and that situation. So Rob, you talked a little bit about sort of like the the struggle for leadership, when who's going to take control, right? What's
Yeah.
that? What I was thinking of is in that Foo Fighters documentary. What was the Foo Fighters documentary called?
Back and
Forth. And I've seen this in a number of documentaries where, in the course of making the documentary, or maybe not in the course of it, but they look back on it, where the band doesn't break up, but someone is removed from the band for not measuring up musically. Mm-hmm. And I'm always like fascinated by this, because these are obviously to the untrained ear, really world-class musicians, one and all. Like, I don't know that I would be able to tell if anyone wasn't pulling their weight. So I'm fascinated when you get that little behind the scenes bit about, well, this guy couldn't play this one song, or, and not just because this guy had a drug problem and that's why we had to kick him out of the band, but like they couldn't hang. I'm reading Carrie Brownstein's memoir right now from Slater-Kinney, Hunger Makes Me a Modern Girl, and she's in she's on her 5th drummer, and we're 2 albums in, and it's fascinating to hear also, because it's also not a good look to sell out these people who still have careers. To say like this drummer sucked and we had to kick this person out. Right.
It's devastating for them both. I would think both personally and professionally.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm always fascinated by that.
Yeah. Let's unpack that for a moment. I read that Carrie Brownstein book too. It was good. And I just wonder, in those instances, it could be about raw talent and raw ability. Mm-hmm. I get that. You have a vision. This is where it needs to go. You're not the right... You literally cannot perform at the level I would like you to perform. I'm John McLaughlin and you aren't that guy, you know? But I think more often than not, it's about a multitude of other factors that you just alluded to.
Okay.
Which is, you're not a good hang. Like so many situations.
Yeah.
Being in a band is mostly spent in a van,
sure,
hanging out with each other, or hanging out at the club before the show or after the show. If you're not cool, if you don't get along as friends, it's going to be really hard. Sure. Everything else is going to be much more difficult. That would be one reason. I guess the more direct reason for someone saying they couldn't hang based on their musicality, I would think, has more to do with the work they are putting in. Because if you like somebody as a friend and you see them putting in the effort to try to up their game and learn the songs, prepare before the rehearsal. See, this is the thing. I think some musicians feel like, and I've run across these guys, you don't have to be professional to be lazy, but you get... The idea is that, we only have so many rehearsals before the gig. I need you to know this set list before you get to the rehearsal. I'm not here to watch you practice, man.
Right.
And yet people can get real lazy, especially drummers who feel like no one notices if they don't actually know the song.
Right. Okay.
And you can call them out. You just call a song that's in 3/4 instead of 4/4, and they just start playing rock beat number 1. You're like, hey man, you clearly didn't listen to the song.
Yeah.
Because you're in the wrong time signature. I know you thought you could fake it because you're a drummer.
Yeah.
But it's not going to work this time. So I suspect it's more about that aspect of things, where you're like, you're not really putting in the work to get better or to learn the material.
Sure.
Which if it's challenging, usually just requires focused effort.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you would hope that the primary songwriters, the leaders of a band, are good judges of talent to begin with, right? You don't invite someone in who's not capable.
Right.
Yes.
And William Goldsmith, I mean, the case you're talking about with Foo Fighters, he was kind of screwed because the bar he was trying to measure up to is one of the better drummers in rock,
sure. Right. It's like an impossible task,
yeah,
right, to be the
it's
drummers
kind of
of
like
the Foo Fighters, right?
Yeah. So
yeah, I guess I'm saying that I believe there is a capability banding structure where you're right. Probably Dave Grohl is at a certain level of drumming, and he just can't be in a band with a drummer he doesn't respect. Bar none, right?
Yeah. Totally.
And so that's a specific challenge for him because he already knows how to play the damn thing.
Right.
But in my observation, you get to a point as a musician, let's say this middle band, which is the biggest band, where you have great competency at your instrument, and there's not much you can't learn to do if you sort of put your weight behind it. But that said, people can just get lazy really easily. They talk about this in the old jazz days too.
Sure.
Where I read this Thelonious Monk biography, and he was talking about how he loved to just keep musicians on their toes by not giving them charts for the songs.
Jesus.
Because he felt like if you gave them too much, information about the song beforehand, they would kind of rest on their laurels and not play. He wanted them on the edge of their seats, playing to the top level of their ability, kind of trying to keep up. That's how he felt he got the best performance out of people. And it was just interesting to me to learn that. That even people who are monsters at their instruments can sometimes just go, you know what, I'm pretty good. I'll probably just show up and do my thing, and that'll be that.
Right.
But that's not how you achieve greatness.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Right.
Yeah. And someone like Thelonious Monk is like a singular genius, right? Too. He has the luxury of being able to do something like that, right? Because his work is gonna shine through no matter what.
Right.
Well, totally, because he's writing the material, he's pulling together the band, but keep in mind, he is working with amazing musicians.
That's true, too.
Max Roach or Sonny Rollins or whoever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Now, is there, not to put you on the spot too much, Rob, but is there one band breakup that you were most either frustrated by or emotionally invested in? I mean, which one kind of hit you the most?
Because of a combination of my age and my musical taste, I didn't live through all the band breakups that are coming to mind right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do have emotional attachment to a few for sure. One that comes to mind, and I even watched a 9-hour documentary about it, you guys might have as well.
On Apple?
is the Beatles.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, I think I do accept that was the right time for them to break up. But I think it's a really interesting study in band dynamics. And listen, as a band guy and a lover of the Beatles, watching the Get Back documentary, which is basically 9 hours of them practicing and also imploding, was one of the most fascinating things you could have possibly given to me. And what I loved about it is that it really got across how boring band practice was.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. For the person who's not in a band, that was loud and clear. It made the documentary very hard to watch, to be honest, from a fan standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I get you, but I think the dynamics of people at that level of creativity is really interesting, because I think that is an example where you do have three major creative forces in the band. Yeah. I think that's certainly rarer, and that's one of the reasons they did so well and they're thought of so well.
Sure.
There are other bands I can think of that are kind of like that. Led Zeppelin comes to mind, but their breakup is a sharp period at the end of a sentence with someone dying, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But I think with that band also, they were kind of coming apart at the seams for so long, running so hot.
For sure.
And maybe the other band that comes to mind is Talking Heads, one of my early favorite bands.
So,
but yeah,
I just read I just finished How Music Works, and I've been I'm not a Talking Heads guy. I know very very little. I have like the top level of understanding of their stuff, and I like what I've listened to. Didn't his bandmates Tina Weymouth and
Chris France.
Yes, Chris France. The other day they got into it with him, or they had an interview where basically they said, David Byrne has become like this mega personality, right, and doing Broadway shows, and he's had this late career revival, and he never mentions his bandmates by name. And he'll say, with my band, or he'll say the Talking Heads. He literally, in How Music Works, I don't think he says their names.
It seems like kind of a dick move.
It seems like a dick move, and they said as much in an interview. And I thought, I'm getting more insight than a whole documentary, right? Just by that one factor. Like, that's weird. Something's going on there. And it immediately made me think less of David Byrne without knowing the whole story.
I can't even think of a justification for that.
Yeah, it seems bizarre.
Like, that's just basic human decency.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah.
I'd have to fact check. I want to fact check that. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not that it's so hard to believe, and I totally buy. Here's where I stand on all that. I think How Music Works was an excellent book, kind of philosophical, not really a memoir.
Yeah.
In its construction, more philosophical about how creativity works and things like that. And it's just I highly recommend it as a read for anyone who's interested in such things.
Yeah.
I think also Chris France, the drummer in Talking Heads, who's married to the bass player, Tina Weymouth, and has been for many years, recently wrote a memoir called Remain in Love.
Oh, okay.
Where and I also read that because 1001 Album Complaints also recently covered Talking Heads. So I recently read that.
Okay.
As research, and he's using that book pretty much to twist the knife.
Oh, really?
In his old bandmate David Byrne. I mean,
okay. So he's got a mission. Yeah.
So 6 of one, half a dozen of
Yeah,
another.
sure.
I can totally buy that David Byrne was really hard to work with, and he's kind of an artist with a capital A.
Sure.
These guys they met at art school.
Right, literally.
So they're all a little weird.
Right.
But at the same time, I thought Chris France in his book came off way worse and more petty.
Oh.
That it's been 40 years and he hasn't. He just looked for every little minimal opportunity to twist the knife.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, that kind of came off a little worse. Second is, I think that the record speaks for itself, which is David Byrne has just done a lot more interesting, successful, creative work.
For sure.
So I'm going to side with him. I understand why it might be frustrating to be in a band with folks like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that part of it.
For sure. How about you? Bands that when they broke up had a real...
Faith No More is probably the toughest one.
One of your favorites.
Yeah. And even more so when they come back, in 2016 and put out an album that was, just as vital, right? Like it wasn't, quality-wise, you can argue where it fits in the discography, but clearly not just a nostalgia trip. And it makes you wonder, like, damn, they could have been doing that
the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I think that one bothers me the most. And that one, of course, anyone being in a band with Mike Patton, I'm sure it's not easy.
Well, a lot of people have been in a band with Mike Patton.
That's true. I think, you know what? I got to check. I might be in a band with Mike Patton. Have to check my calendar. That one hurts because there's so much wasted time there.
For sure.
And maybe they'll do one more. Who knows? But yeah, that one bothers me. And then Metallica would have been had they broken up post Newstead, but they dropped Robert in there.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. I was struggling to think of a band that what often happens with me with being the indie rock guy in this duo, this podcast duo, is that, and I'm sure Robbie may have some experience with this, is that the bands sort of dissolve rather than break up. So I'll really like a local band or a band that hasn't quite broke yet. And then for whatever reason, they never do break. And somebody has to make the executive decision that we're not going to do this anymore. Like it is not financially feasible anymore to hop in the van because we got to make a living. Like I can't live like this in my 40s. Yeah. I want to have a family and stuff. And that always...
You nailed it.
And that bums me the fuck out which is why, and we've talked about loyalty before, Tank and I have, why I try with these smaller bands to buy the record, to buy Tank, you've said buy the merch, right? Because it's more than likely most of it's going to them. And you feel like you're underwriting their longevity in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many bands, particularly from college, where there was this alternative rock boom in the early mid 90s. And all these bands were platinum selling recording artists for one album. Yeah. And then
Verve Pipe or something.
Verve Pipe is a really great example. They're touring again, but so beloved here in Michigan. And then to become nationally recognized and sell millions of albums and go on tour with Kiss. And then have a couple albums of varying success and then just decide we can't do it anymore.
Wait, did Verve Pipe went on tour with Kiss?
Yeah, they opened for Kiss.
What the fuck? Who paired that together?
There are interviews with Brian Vander Ark, the lead singer, where he talks about what a disaster and what a bad idea that was. And there's also video of them basically tanking a show beforehand and getting booed off the stage.
They should have come out in face paint and shit.
Yeah, no shit.
So actually, unintentional segue. I don't know a whole lot about Kiss, but that has to be a fascinating dynamic.
Oh yeah,
in that band, right? With Ace Frehley and Peter Criss, and then the people that would go on to replace them, who I don't know their names. Yeah, and but I don't know, Rob. Is there any great history or trivia about that maybe I'm not aware of, that the lore of Kiss and their...
About Kiss? We recently covered Kiss on the podcast, as it happens, and I didn't know much about them going in. Yeah. And the thing that fascinates me is how they distributed the face paint options.
Okay.
Where Gene Simmons is like, I'm in charge. I get the cool face paint. It's the Demon. And the next step down apparently is Street Mime, and then it goes down from there to Catman.
To Catman.
I feel bad for the cat guy.
There were other designs available.
The Catman is ridiculous.
That's Peter Criss, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like he's got to be like, guys, what the fuck? A cat?
Man.
It gives you more respect for ICP that there's a balance between their face paint, right? Shaggy to dope.
Yeah, Violent J.
Violent J.
Put some respect on ICP.
So but in relation to what we were just talking about, I read a couple interesting things about Kiss, researching for our episode. One was that they slugged it out for a long time, putting a lot of money into the stage show because they're clearly all about the stage show.
Yeah, sure.
Right before they found success, and even put out records. They kind of had people believing in them based on the live show, but they were making zero money. And so you hit on it, that you have to be of a certain age to want to do that, to travel in a van and sleep on people's floors and continue to believe for some length of time that this life is worth it, that you're going to get somewhere with it. And at a certain age, you probably want to stop doing that. Luckily, they ended up having a hit, obviously, before that happened. Yeah. But there was like a long period where they were touring incessantly. They were getting good people to the show, but they were also spending so much on the show, and they weren't selling any records.
It's crazy.
And so it was, it could have been dire, right?
For sure.
And it's interesting because that probably is not a coincidence that they've become notoriously money hungry, right? Like if there's one thing Kiss gets shit for, it's that Gene he'll brand like the Kiss coffin. He'll brand
Kiss
anything, right? Yeah. And it makes sense because that mindset probably never left them. We got to get the money.
Sure.
You got to be savvy to make it in any, I would argue, in any business. You have to be creative, you have to be adaptable. And while I'm not a part of the Kiss Army, I should make clear, but I respect it. I respect it highly. I think you have to learn to flex with the times. And when I hear creative people complaining about and I love to complain, to be clear. But, if you're giving up because you're tired of streaming or whatever you're doing, you're fighting Spotify or something, I think you're missing the point. I think you have to just keep changing and adapting and make it work.
Right.
For sure.
And apropos of nothing, kind of, there's a video not long ago, a couple weeks ago, I think, of Gene Simmons had to take a break on stage.
Oh no.
Pretty grim.
Oh no.
Yeah. Like they're playing and they have to get him a chair and he's just sitting there slumped over. And then Paul Stanley's like, we're going to have to cancel the show. Sorry guys.
That's not
probably time to hang up the Spurs.
Exactly. Hang up the 9-inch heel boots.
right. Exactly.
Well, you know what? You bring up a thing I had written down in my notes, which is what your experience is with a band that has not broken up, but they all hate each other. And this is a very particular thing. I'm thinking of Motley Crue, right? Speaking of somebody else who needs to take a break while they're performing, or maybe shouldn't bother in the first place.
I got to get a drop of the Vince Neil vocals. I got to have that ready.
It's so incredible. Yeah. But I watched a documentary, and I think there's been a few on Motley Crue. It was just a few years ago, though. This is before the show came out, and I think even before the book. And they're interviewing all of them separately because none of them can be in the same room together. And they ride on, there are 4 tour buses. They do not talk to one another until they get the stage. And I remember thinking, even from a nostalgia, it bothered me so much. I thought, I don't want to go see these fuckers.
Right.
I already had a suspicion that this is a cash grab, but if you hate each other, why the fuck are you doing it?
And how bad were you with your money?
Yeah, right. Right, because there was enough going around in the 80s.
Yeah.
The Strokes did this a while ago too, right? Where they recorded a whole album where none of them were in the same room because they couldn't stand one another, but somehow they got convinced to make an album together. I'm not buying that shit.
No.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I guess it's not the case anymore, but...
Yeah, that kind of sucks. I agree. You want to believe that there's camaraderie, certainly for the creation of new art. So I think we should draw a line between the reunion tour cash-in, which is designed, and what people want is you to come out and just play your greatest hits. You don't really need to do anything new. You can learn this. You can relearn the song at home in your living room, and then you can show up and bang it out on stage, right?
Yeah. Well, if you're Motley Crue,
the idea that you're going to collaborate creatively again, new, and try to make new material, you have to have some camaraderie there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That's a great point. It's we've covered, I think it's come up twice now, the idea of art versus entertainment. And creating the album is art, right? And the live show is entertainment.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So you can have soulless entertainment, but you can't really have soulless art.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that reads, and I think that's why a lot of these reunion tours don't bother trying to make new records.
Yes. Yeah. Well, what I've liked, again, coming from sort of the indie rock standpoint, is these bands from the 80s and 90s that are getting back together and to make new music. And that's the start. So you see the difference in between in an episode that has yet to air, I talk about how much I don't like the Pixies. And I have reasons, right? But they
Sure.
get back together, and everybody clamors for these bands to get back together. And they get back together and they tour, and people go see them, and you get what you want because they play all the hits. And then they go back in the studio sort of after the fact and record albums that no one gives a shit about because the magic is just not there anymore.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a social psychology to that. It doesn't. I mean, I love to hear Rob's take on this, but I think it doesn't matter how good the album is.
Well, okay.
People are done with them.
So my point was two-sided in that there were a couple instances recently, again, in the indie rock world where bands from the 90s, these shoegaze bands that I like, Slow Dive and Ride, both came back after 20, 30 years out and recorded great albums that are sort of universally praised. And they were somehow able to recapture what made them great, but maybe people were ready for that kind of music again, might have also been part of it, right? Because there was already a trend going that way of people revisiting that style of music. But it's amazing to me. It's amazing when it works and when it doesn't work. It seems fairly arbitrary almost.
Right.
Yeah, I would think that I understand why you did the reunion tour first and then made the record, but you should have done those in the other order.
Yeah.
You know, you should have built that camaraderie and sense of new energy first, and then. But I get it. Coachella offers you $50 million to show up for one night. You're like, yeah, we should do that.
Right.
And I feel like, I mean, just anecdotally and without much data, I feel like that is usually how it goes, right? Where there will be, money gets dangled in front of the band. They go, let's do it. Then they tour and they go, you know what, this is fun. Let's make an album.
Sure.
I think it usually goes that way.
Right. Water under the bridge. And
Right. And their accounts are empty.
That's right.
I also say I got no problem with albums that no one listens to. I mean, I make a lot of those.
We make a lot of podcasts that no one listens to.
Oh, yeah.
It's just fun to do, you know?
No,
And
exactly.
so art for art's sake,
Yeah.
that's an end in of itself,
Totally.
I suppose is my point.
It's just frustrating for me that I feel like, because I'm looking at Faith No More again with Soul Invictus in 2016, 19 years after their previous album.
Yeah.
Very good album.
Yeah.
No one
cared.
It's like a fart in the wind, right?
Yeah, sure.
But I'm sure they really don't care. They made the album. They're proud of it.
Yeah.
I don't know who's really crying about it, but it's like, it just sucks that once people have gone through their paces with the band, it doesn't matter what they do. You're out of their mindset.
There's too much, right?
Yeah,
In
that's
the
true.
meantime,
Yeah, that's
like
true.
I'm already struggling to keep up with everything. If my favorite band goes away for a while, I kind of just have to go, well, all right.
Right.
Okay, but let's talk about another thing that's haunting this conversation,
Okay.
which is ageism in creativity. I mean, how often is it that someone makes truly great work post, say, age 40? It's not that common.
This is something Tank and I talk about quite often.
Yeah, we just did, and I posited that there's two aspects to it, right? There's how good is the material they're actually making at different ages, and then how well is the public receptive to it? Because I feel like once you hit, my theory is that there's this graph that in your 50s and 60s, no one wants to see you, no matter how good it is. And then if you make it long enough, you become kind of a ironic hero again in your 70s.
Sure.
You know, if you last long enough, they'll embrace you again. It's like, oh my God, you're still here. You're making music. Good for you.
It's how Rick Astley can play Glastonbury.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But in your 50s and 60s, I think they're kind of done with you. Now, whether or not people are still capable of it, again, we talked about how, I mentioned how, again, from my outsider perspective, it seems so fucked up that of all the skills or trades or abilities humans have, we generally accept that you get better at it the more you do it. But yet there's this insistence that I think let's just say the public as a faceless mob has with something being new and fresh, where it's like, yeah, I've been playing this instrument for 20, 30 years. I'm writing songs for 20, 30 years, as if that is somehow a detriment instead of an asset.
Sure.
Yeah, you totally. Yeah, you took the words out of my brain. I agree. It's weird, but it's also true. And I have to say, as a music listener, I tend to naturally fall into that category. I don't think Bob Dylan got up to be a better songwriter.
No.
I think he's still a good songwriter.
Yeah.
But that's not the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's true. I think it's very genre specific too, right? I think.
Oh, for sure.
Like gangster rap at 60 doesn't really play. Unless you're Ice-T. He still pulls it off.
Right. Somehow. Shit, he still does body count, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive.
Which is.
It also depends on the stuff you're writing about
That's
as
true.
well.
Totally.
Right? Like, I think that first albums are just much easier to believe in as being sincere expressions of thought. I think this is one of the reasons, the first Weezer album is held up there,
Yeah,
even
sure.
though. And I love that Weezer album. It was issued as I walked into high school, pretty much to every young kid.
Right.
It's great, and I don't love, and like the rest of the internet, I don't love what Weezer did later, but they are kind of similar. I've always thought that you just buy it more because it's the first album.
Sure.
Same with, by the time Rage Against the Machine sells 5 million copies of the first record, you're like, what are you raging against?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. No, there's a line in the sand for me I've noticed, and it is when if you care about the lyrics, and I've gone on record as saying I don't care much about lyrics anymore in my old age, but when I did care about the lyrics, the moment the songs mentioned fatherhood, I thought, I don't give a shit anymore.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was an immediate schmaltzy, like, I get it, and I'm a dad. I totally get being schmaltzy and want to write about the loves of your lives, and now it's not just a hopeful love or a love you found in a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. But I always found it so schmaltzy and so un-rock and roll to sing about your kid, and that was a line for me. And I wouldn't drop them immediately, but it was always a sign for me that this is going to get not where I want. It's going to go where I don't want it to go.
I guess it could be done artfully,
It can be.
right? I think it can. I think maybe if it's the impetus, but it's not so obvious.
Yeah.
You might have great art, but if it's like, I love my baby daughter, it's like, all right, dude, a little too on the nose.
Well, okay, so I compare it to stand-up comedy.
Okay.
And stand-up comics do this often. They get to a phase in their career where what was their shtick, their style of humor, it was about this. It was about social commentary. It was about relationships. It becomes about parenthood. There's enough of that. Right already.
That's true.
Like it's not, I guess it's not rock and roll enough to me.
That's true.
It made me think of stand-ups as well, because they talk about how I think the challenge of the creative person is that when you're looking around to write about something, you have your own life experiences directly to draw from. And whatever's going on in your life tends to be what you will write about. So stand-up comics who are touring a lot, they write about airplane, they make jokes about airplane
Yes,
food
exactly.
and stuff like that. And then eventually, you become a parent, and I'm not a parent, but it seems to take over your entire life and brain.
Right.
And I kind of get it. So it's on your mind.
Yeah.
I sort of understand, but I also get what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's got to be for a comedian. It's got to be hard once you're like, like a Seinfeld level or now like a Bill Burr level. 5-star hotels, first class. Like, where do you draw new material from?
Right.
Like
everything is made convenient for you. You have nothing.
Exactly.
No, you don't have a whole lot to complain about.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. I think it's the same with songwriting to a certain extent, that you got a lot more fire in your belly and in your 20s or teens even, and everything seems like it matters way more, whether it's romantic relationships or
That's true.
politics. I'm now that I'm just north of 40, I'm pretty zen about all that stuff. I don't
Right. You
it's
accept,
like, hey man, just another day.
Hey man, shit's gonna happen. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow.
See, I there's a hidden rock and roll star in me because I'm not zen about shit. Everything, everything gets me all worked up. So yeah, maybe I need to.
Maybe you need to
Well, yeah, you
consider.
should channel that then.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Oh, I just want to ask this:
Yeah.
if a band breaks up and you've got at least two really solid creative voices in the band. So maybe you've got a Metallica situation where you've got someone writes the lyrics and someone writes the music, or you've got a strong creative partnership, and they break up. Who gets to play the old songs?
Live?
Yes.
Well, they both do, right?
They do?
Yeah. So, are you talking from a legal perspective?
No, from your...
Oh. Probably the vocalist.
See, I go through this with the Smiths, being one of my favorite bands, in that they both do. And they both play them, and to varying levels of effectiveness, right? Because, Johnny Marr put all the music together. He was the music mastermind in that band. Dude can't sing real well. He surrounds himself with great musicians on stage, but it's missing the iconic sound of Morrissey singing. It's a little, Morrissey still has the voice for the most part and puts together a great group of musicians who are just aping what was already recorded for him. So it tends to be more effective from Morrissey's end, even though he's, again, kind of a despicable human being.
Right.
And I cheer more for Marr. Yeah, I was just curious, like...
Well, I mean, that's a Gilmore Waters conversation too, right?
And they both do it, right?
Of course.
Yeah. They both, okay.
Yeah.
I think in my moral universe, both doing it is perfectly fine.
Okay.
I think kind of anything's fair game at the show. I mean, you want to cover a Prince song, go for it,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Yeah.
Like whatever gets the crowd, you're there to entertain the crowd, as we said.
That's true.
It's entertainment, and do what it's going to take. But I would say, with the example you just gave, that might not come off very well because you'll be missing this really important piece. So unless you have another singer who even is in the style range of Morrissey, I think it's not going to really land that well with the crowd. That's my guess.
I agree, and I would admit, and that's why Morrissey's shows sell out. Right, he can play to bigger audiences than Johnny Marr can, despite it being an equal creative partnership for all these years, or all those years.
Because it's way easier to get a guy to play guitar like Johnny Marr or a band to play and sound like the Smiths that aren't the Smiths than the reverse.
That makes sense.
You know who's got to be pissed is Steve Perry's. He's still alive, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't. He was the one that was replaced by that Filipino guy, right?
He wasn't replaced by him.
I think so.
Weren't there years where they didn't make any music?
Okay, but in any case.
Okay, yeah, sure.
To have like your potential gravy train ruined by like shit, the guy that we got sounds just like me.
And isn't this the rock star thing where he climbed up on stage or something at a show and then was in the band?
Yeah.
I thought he was in like a tribute band.
Oh, tribute band.
Yeah,
Because if you go see some of these tribute bands, they sound exactly like the people.
It's pretty impressive.
No, it is.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So are there I'm thinking about my obvious example, but times where breakups got us two great bands.
Oh, for sure. There's got to be tons of them.
Well, there's
right?
a lot of them, right? So like for me, and speaking of the playing the live stuff, it's a fascinating kind of thing. So it got us Megadeth, right?
Yeah.
So Dave Mustaine kicked out.
Yeah.
Still hasn't gotten over it 44 years later.
How long was he in the band for?
Less than a year, maybe.
Okay.
So they did the No Life Till Leather demo. So their demo for Kill 'Em All was with Dave Mustaine.
Okay.
And then, just drinking all this, just being a typical asshole, I guess. And he's out. That's when Kurt came in for the album itself.
Okay.
But it got us Megadeth. And that was the music. So Megadeth gave us, one great and arguably a lot of good albums.
Yeah, sure.
Fueled by resentment.
Yeah.
It was their entire career, the entire being of that band is fueled by his hatred. And it's fascinating to me. They never, ever, ever have covered each other's songs live.
Wow.
You would think they would, right?
You would think so.
Nope. So
they could break the internet if they did that.
Oh yeah.
I mean, at least the metal internet. Yeah.
Right. And there were a couple tribute shows where I think that they kind of, but yeah. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of, so if the, what is that? Wilco and Uncle Tupelo becoming, was that acrimonious or?
It was acrimonious when Uncle Tupelo broke up. Yeah.
Okay. So that's another one.
Absolutely. Like you don't get Wilco without that band existing, right? And him figuring out that that Tweety needs to be the creative voice. And yeah, absolutely.
Right. Do you have any come to mind for you, Rob, of breakups that kind of became a net positive to music?
Well, it has to be so many. No, nothing's exactly coming to mind right now. Yeah. But like a lot of people go through multiple situations before they lock into the right one. Right? Apologies, nothing's jumping in my brain.
I bet if we dig hard enough, and I'll probably do it tonight after the fact. I bet somewhere there was a completely obscure band that generated two giant bands. Right?
I'm sure there was, yeah.
Like the first band no one heard of, and then they break up, they go their separate ways, and become the leaders of two famous bands.
Yeah.
Has to have happened.
Absolutely.
Oh, I've got one.
Okay.
One of my favorite bands, the little band from Texas. They are the result of two bands breaking up. So the story behind ZZ Top that I heard is that when the Zombies had their hit in England, Time of the Season, and then broke up before the single got released. But the song was on the radio. And so some intrepid promoters in the United States were like, we should just compile a fake Zombies and tour as the Zombies because no one knows what these guys look like. It's the 60s. So they compile two bands and they're each called the Zombies. And the premise is that they are the real zombies and they're touring the United States. And eventually gets found out by some reporter from Rolling Stone and they have to break it up. But the Texas-based Zombies were the two guys from ZZ Top. That's how they met.
Incredible.
Wow.
Frank Beard and the bass player.
Huh.
Wow.
Jeez.
That's fascinating.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't think. I'm sure there's plenty.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty. Especially I think the punk rock scene where all these bands were so close, right?
Yeah.
They're all in and out of each other's bands all the time.
Right.
I got to imagine there's a lot of instances like that.
Right. One thing I was going to ask you about, Rob, I don't know how close you guys got to maybe this being an issue, if you're just familiar with how it works, but songwriting credits.
Yeah, totally agree.
Because I don't understand it other than it seems like, basically I know that if you have the songwriting credits, you get royalties, but the way in which they're distributed is a mystery to me. It almost seems like it's just how is it decided amongst the band? I don't see who gets to really decide when do you get a credit.
Yeah, I do think this ultimately leads to a lot of band breakups.
Yeah.
Is what you're hinting at, the kind of attribution
Right.
problem. Who is credited with writing the songs? Because I think royalties can work in a few different ways, but the gist of it is that you get a royalty as a songwriter and you can get a royalty as a performer, right? But it's kind of split oftentimes 50-50. And so it's meaning everyone in the band gets half, theoretically, for being the performers if a given song takes off. But then the songwriter gets a whole additional 50%. And so some of the most successful bands, or the ones that stayed together the longest and seem to have stayed friends, I'm thinking of, say, REM. They sat down right at the beginning before they signed their first contract and were like, all the songs are written by all four guys equally. End of story.
Wow.
Right. Right.
Because they had studied their history and they knew that's what broke bands up.
That's crazy.
Right. And
So that's a factor. And I think the bands also can get into this situation where they sign a contract. It feels like they're being successful because they're going out on tour, they're selling records, but because of the nature of the deal, there's not actually that much money coming back.
Yeah.
And it turns out where the money is in that publishing. So they get jealous of the, say, songwriter. Whatever the prescribed splits were are no longer good when they see how much more this other guy is making in the band.
I'm just wondering who the arbitrator of that is. Because, like, again, using my Metallica background, of like Hetfield and Ulrich are credited on every song. But then there's some where, like, Jason Newsted will pop up with a writing credit.
Yeah.
But he plays the bass parts and he comes up with the bass parts for every song.
Yeah.
So there's this arbitrary line at which they go, okay, you get a writing credit on this song. But I
Yeah.
don't know. Is it Hetfield and Ulrich? Is that a conflict of interest? Is it band management?
It's so strange because it's like it's when the legal gets involved with the creative, right?
Right.
That's bizarre. Like, yeah.
I don't know if you know that, Rob, as to when there's who gets to decide who gets the credit. And because the people who get the credits, it seems like kind of a circular thing.
Yeah.
I think that I'll speak from my own experience, but I believe that it comes in many, many, many flavors because it all comes down to how you're writing the songs and how the internal band politics are going to figure that out. So I think the answer to your question is the band typically figures that out probably long before management or anyone else gets involved.
Yeah.
And so people maybe have tacitly agreed to this, perhaps without realizing, and then are later annoyed by the end results of it, right? But think about, I have thought about this a lot, and I've written songs in different ways with bands over the years, and have split up writing credit in different ways. So the way that, like, I think of traditionally the way a songwriter works is you show up to rehearsal with lyrics, melody, and chords. Basically what you would call the skeleton of a song written on your instrument, guitar or piano or something. And then the band sets to arranging it, meaning the bass player writes the bass part, the drummer writes the drum part, etc., with direction from the person that originated the song. Hey, no, I need a little more hi-hat on that, or, hit that 4-tom a few more, or be a little more bouncy, give me more Paul McCartney in that bass, less, whatever, Sid Vicious.
The direction is always less Sid Vicious, as I understand it.
I need less heroin on that.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
So,
yeah.
But I think normally, in my experience, that is perceived by everyone. I mean, maybe I've steamrolled everyone. But it's perceived as a single songwriter on that song.
Okay, no,
right?
I can see that.
In that scenario. But there are other scenarios where the band comes in. I heard Talking Heads used to write this way, and this is one of Chris France, the drummer's, gripes against David Byrne, is that when they got to their later period, which was a little more, let's say, African influenced or world music influenced, they would just get in and jam for extended periods of time until they found a groove they liked, and they'd be recording, and there'd be no lyrics.
Yeah.
And then when they liked the groove, they go, that's the A section of the song. And then David Byrne would go off and write lyrics to that. And then they do that again to come up with the B section and figure out the transitions.
Okay.
To me, that feels a lot more like the entire band is responsible
For sure.
for the tune.
For sure.
And the one instance that we brought up recently that I'm guessing happens a lot, maybe even more so now these days, is so in Slayer, the drummer, Dave Lombardo, left the band because I'm assuming it was Tom Araya and Kerry King basically said, all right, we're the band and you're an employee now. They said, and then he, I saw him on some kind of drum clinic. He was answering questions from the crowd. And he said, I did the math and it came out to like less than minimum wage, right? With all that you have to do for touring and everything else. So he said no, and he's not in the band anymore, which is super disappointing for...
It really is.
Number one, for fucking Slayer, right?
Yeah, right.
And you have one of the best metal drummers, and you're just like, yeah, we're not going to make you part of the band. And it actually makes it hard for me to give it... Not that I was a huge Slayer fan, but...
Yeah, sure.
It really kind of sours the legacy. I'm like, really? You had to do that?
So I have to believe that started with the personality conflict.
Yeah.
But and it is a bummer, but I do have an anecdote that you might find pleasing around that.
All right.
Which is aforementioned Pink Floyd. Roger Waters fired Richard Wright, the keyboard player, and then rehired him as the touring keyboardist for the Wall tour in 1980. So he was officially a salaried employee, not a member of the band. Unfortunately for Roger Waters and the rest of the band, they spent so much money on that tour, they actually lost money. It was a non-profitable tour. So the only band member that turned a profit was Richard Wright.
Perfect.
And he recorded on The Wall, the album? He was, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think one more thought on songwriting, and maybe this explains the Newstead thing that you mentioned, is sometimes as a songwriter, you'll be like, oh, I have an A and a B, but I need a C. I need a bridge to the song, or I can't quite figure out this transition. Do you want to help me solve it, either in the rehearsal room, or outside of that? And then say the bass player goes, oh, I think you could just go do this, and here's this little transition, or how about the bridge goes to minor or whatever. And you go, all right, yeah, that's worth a songwriting credit. You kind of, you helped me get over a little song-based problem.
Right.
And so I've had those situations too. I could see that happening.
Okay. Yeah. And the one that I'm thinking of, I know it was, so My Friend of Misery on the Black Album, the bass kind of solo breakdown in the middle, that was Newsted's groove, and he wanted to make that the instrumental. Black Album doesn't have an instrumental.
Oh, okay.
And every album before it had one.
Oh.
He was saying, this should be the Black Album instrumental, and they said, we love it, but we want to make a song out of it.
Okay.
So that's how he ended up with that credit. But on future albums, it's very much, seems kind of random, like Hammett's name pops up, Trujillo.
Yeah.
And I always wondered, like, how do they... But yeah, it must be something like that, where they deemed the contribution significant enough. It's not just a lick. It's part of the structure. Yeah.
Can I say too, one more thing
Yeah.
that occurs to me is with attribution is there are some people who, for whatever reason, are prescient enough. And I'm thinking of Bruce Springsteen and Tom Petty are two examples.
Okay.
Bruce Springsteen got signed as an artist for himself. He then went back to a band, or sort of assembled a band, or guys he had played with, and said, you're my band. The contract's in my name. I'm the guy.
Sure.
Here's the splits. They heavily favor me. And Tom Petty, I think, did the same thing with the Heartbreakers. And I think he'd even been playing with the Heartbreakers.
Oh, wow.
But ultimately, the point of the story is they both had the sense to go, listen, I'm the guy. This is the split. You're either going to live with it or not, but we're going to settle it now, early. And then I'm not going to hear complaints about it later. Right. And that seemed to work too.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm sure maybe clauses if they want to go do their own thing on their own time. You know.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I thought of another group that if they never broke up, you'd be missing out greatly. One Direction.
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, weren't they put together for a contest? I think they were all individual performers, and they're put together for a TV show. But no breakup of One Direction, no Harry Styles, people. I mean, come on.
That man.
Certified pop star.
Shudder to think.
I don't think I could name one Harry Styles song. I know the name and that people love him.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat as you.
No.
All right, that'll wrap up our discussion on separation, band breakups. Huge thanks to Rob for coming in today and giving us all this extra insight and background on the industry.
Yeah, go check out 1001 Album Complaints. It's a great podcast. I can vouch for it. I've listened to it's. You've got a lot to catching up to do if you're just getting into it now. They've been doing it for a while, and but honestly, I really enjoy the podcast, and we're really appreciative of you coming on, Rob.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It was absolutely awesome to talk to you. I could talk to you all day. This kind of musical nerdiness is definitely my wheelhouse.
Yeah,
So,
likewise.
I really enjoy it.
Yeah, we'll see you in season 3, I think.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so now it's time for the playlist challenge. And since it's the last one of the season, we thought it'd be a good idea to change it up a bit and do a playlist challenge with 10 songs. So E picked the... God damn it.
Oh, no.
Hola!
So I'm guessing your Limitation Crab?
Sí?
I didn't realize Limitation Crab was female.
And Guatemalan?
No, soy mexicana.
Oh, okay. Well, do you speak English, Limitation Crab?
Sí.
Great. I'll take that as a yes. So maybe tell us why you're here.
Well, I heard you say 10 song playlist challenge. It's already been a long episode. I think 10 songs is pushing it. It's a bit much.
I mean, she's kind of right.
Fine. We'll keep it to 5 then. Thanks, Limitation Crab.
Ningún problema. Hasta luego.
Anyway, as I was saying, E picked the topic this week, so I'll throw it over to him for the introduction.
Today's topic for our playlist challenge is pronouns. For the final challenge of the season, I had to pull something grammatical on Tank just to challenge him. Considering you did so well on the verbs challenge.
And as we saw from the verbs one, I went to about 2 or 3 websites. What is a pronoun? I found out a lot about possessive adjectives.
Yes. Oh, about possessive adjectives.
Right. So yours, pronoun.
Right.
Your, possessive adjective.
Possessive. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it describes the. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was not gonna get embarrassed twice. Okay. So every single one of my suggestions is Merriam-Webster guaranteed to be a pronoun.
Well done.
Thank you.
Gosh, I hope I didn't fuck up. I don't think I paid that close attention.
Well, see, that's
okay.
See what happens.
Yeah. All right.
Catharsis.
And since I picked the topic, we're going to start off with Tank with the 5 songs that I sent to him.
That is correct, as is tradition. Coming in at number 5. While you wait for the others, Grizzly Bear featuring Michael McDonald. Oh, practice out in the car.
For a second, I forgot I gave you this song. I thought it was apropos of nothing. And then you were just going to do it for the whole thing.
That needs to happen now. That'll replace the number 2 gimmick.
Right.
All your useless pretensions are weighing on my time. You could beg for forgiveness as long as you like. I'll just wait.
So what I love. No, I'm not doing that. All right. So I do love the sheer randomness of this pairing.
Isn't it great?
I do like it, but it's weird that it gives me zero feel for the band with the vocals being such a distraction.
Yeah, sure.
Right. It really sounds like someone could have told me this is Michael McDonald over stock free audio.
Yeah,
you know
sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I did go back and listen to the original.
Okay.
And of course, totally different
Yeah.
feel. Right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it was an interesting study in what amazing difference that a voice that you know can do to alter your perception of a song.
Absolutely.
Right. But if you know it, you lock into it.
Right.
And then everything else seems secondary. And if you don't know it, then you're kind of more open-minded.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. And something about the mix of the audio makes it seem not real. Like, I don't even know what it is. If it's compressed or it's in the background or something, but something doesn't feel like I'm listening to a band playing.
I see.
I don't know what it is.
Okay. And you're not talking about the distinction between the way the music is mixed and his voice is mixed.
No. If you took the voice out,
I see.
all the music is kind of maybe smushed together in the background.
Okay.
And it feels, this again makes no sense, but it feels recorded. Right? It is recorded, right? It feels like they're playing a recording.
I see.
Right?
Okay.
It feels unlive.
Okay.
But which of course that is minimized when it's not Michael McDonald.
Right.
But and it does work better without him, I think. And it was probably a conscious decision. If you're going to go get Michael McDonald to re-record your shit, you're not going to bury him in the mix.
No,
right?
He's way up.
Which would be funny.
Yeah, it would be.
What the fuck are you doing?
The people need to hear me.
I flew all the way to California for this. This is bullshit.
I mean, you bring up a good point about like his voice is so tied to his style of music that it is jarring to have like lo-fi-ish indie stuff and then his voice on top. It doesn't seem like a natural match.
Yeah. So it's I didn't dislike it.
Oh, I think it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. No, I didn't dislike it. It was just, these 5 in general, it was a very middling 5.
Okay.
Like
That's
all
fine.
of them were sort of
okay.
So like I don't hate number 5, I don't love number 1.
Got it.
It's just they're sort of like they're here.
Okay.
Right. But it one way or another worked its way to number 5. Yep. And I will check out a little bit more. I will check out Grizzly Bear.
Yeah, they're okay.
Sans Michael McDonald. But yeah, just to, because it does pique my curiosity at least. At number 4 is If You Know, You Know by Pusha T.
If you know, you know. This thing of ours, oh, this thing of ours. Her fraternity of drug dealers ringing off. I just happen to be alumni. Too legit, they still looking at me with one eye. The company I keep is not corporate enough. Child rebel soldier, you ain't orphan enough. A rapper turned trapper can't morph into us, but a trapper turned rapper can morph into Puff. Dance contest for the smokers.
So all my exposure to Pusha T up until now was guest verses.
Yeah, he does a lot of guest verses.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm probably going to get some wrong and miss some, but like I know Kanye, I think he shows up on some run that maybe Run the Jewels or even if it's not an album collaboration, but the name keeps popping up. But I never, it's funny, no matter how many times I see it, I never think I'm going to check out Pusha T.
The Arby's commercial didn't push you over the edge?
I didn't know that was him.
Check it out. It's pretty awesome.
Really?
It's unironic. I think he really likes Arby's.
Okay. The beef and cheddar?
Delicious.
Fuck with the beef and cheddar. Fucking kidding me? That shit's been, shout out to the beef and cheddar. That sandwich has been unchanged for 40 fucking years.
Holding it down.
Right.
Yeah.
Unchanged.
Yeah, it's
And that's
fantastic.
Big Mac levels of consistency.
It really-
But no one talks about it as an iconic sandwich.
They don't. Not even Arby's, really.
Until today.
That's right.
Until today.
All right.
This episode is dedicated to the beef and cheddar.
Preach.
You know what? We're going to have a contest on social media, and the winner is going to get a beef and cheddar inside a fanny pack.
We can't guarantee the freshness of the beef and cheddar.
You know what? Next week, let's go to Arby's.
Okay.
Yeah, they got the meats.
I'm vegetarian. I do like
Can we do a tofu beef and cheddar?
I do like the mozzarella sticks, which our buddy John thinks is travesty because he thinks they're disgusting. I actually like them. And the curly fries are curly fries.
Could we fry up some tofu and then just swap out,
like just bring it, like some contraband tofu.
Yeah. And then just pull the beef out. Which
wouldn't be the first time you've done that at Arby's or any fast food restaurant.
And then, because it's all the sauce.
It is.
Or we could order beef and cheddar, no beef, and they'll look at us funny. We'll just fucking do it.
Just do it.
And then we could insert the beef back home. Right. The preferred location of beef insertion, right? All right. It's a good thing we're trying to keep this one brief. Right. All right. So back to Pusha T.
Yes.
I do love his clear enunciation, which is, it's probably one of my get off my lawn type attitudes towards modern hip hop, but it's nice to fucking hear someone speaking clearly.
Sure. Right.
Good wordplay, fun double entendre. It's just good stuff all the way around. He's a talented MC.
Yeah.
But the beat's just okay.
Oh, I like the beat a lot.
Yeah.
It's a Kanye beat.
Yeah. I guess I can hear that.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was superlative.
Okay.
I just thought it was good.
Okay.
Which is good enough.
Cool.
Right?
That's fair.
The vocal hook is really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that definitely is an earworm. I found it interesting. The chorus is only a repetition of the words. There's no music change.
Right.
Which that's pretty rare.
Yeah.
Kinda
it is.
neat.
That's true.
It's like you don't realize it's a chorus until the second or even third time you hear it. Like, wait, is that the chorus?
That's it.
So not bad. Not bad. I'll probably dabble a bit.
Cool.
I'm curious, but
I mean, he's hit or miss in the quality of his wordplay because it's all about selling drugs. Like every single song he's ever written is about selling drugs.
we'll push us right in the name.
So
Right. You know what you're getting.
right.
Yeah, not bad. Solid hip hop track.
Yeah.
At number 3 is Your Best American Girl by Mitski. I have no idea what the lyrics are about, but it makes me sad.
Okay.
Okay. My guess is, I mean, she's not good enough somehow.
Yeah, because of her ethnicity.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then so I did some moderate Wikipediaing, right? And, born in Japan, moved around a lot.
Yeah.
She's American, but I don't know, is she half American, half Japanese by ethnicity? But
I don't recall.
whatever it is, I think that's the gimmick is there's a guy and it's like, they're not, I'm too Asian for your,
Right. For your parents. Yeah.
Mitsuki is her actual name, which is neat. And Puberty 2 is a great album name.
It really is, because there's no Puberty 1.
It's even better. Right. Even better. But the song itself, I do like a lot how it built. There's a lot of layers that it took a few listens to separate it out. There's a lot going on. And I very much like how the vocals go from far above the music to below the music at the end.
Oh, cool.
It's rare that you can visualize the dynamics as like a ramp that goes up and down throughout a song, but here it does. So cool. I like it. Nice. And I do think, this is kind of right down the middle of the kind of things I would like. I do think it's, my number 3, number 2 are very similar genres.
Okay.
And, kind of in my wheelhouse. So I should make some effort to get a little more familiar.
Cool.
But yeah, I dig it.
Yeah. This, and if you want to know more about this song, Song Exploder has a whole episode on it where she breaks down all the musical parts of it as well as the backstory.
Really?
So yeah, it's great.
No, that is good. Yeah, I should probably just.
You would love that show.
Yeah, I would.
Yep.
I don't know why I'm not doing that yet. Moving on to number 2 is Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard by Lana Del Rey.
I can't help but feel somewhat like my body, mind, my soul. Handmade beauty sealed up by 2 man-made walls. And I'm like, when's it gonna be my turn? When's it gonna be my turn?
So I do think it's funny.
Yeah.
I'm not calling you out, but the timing is funny.
Okay.
Because I think it was just last week with The Power of Orange Knickers. You didn't like.
I didn't like when they said the title right away.
Right.
Good call.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because it's the first thing. I almost thought it was intentional. I'm like, he did this on purpose.
It wasn't.
Right. But I know it's just a coincidence.
It's just less offensive than Tori's.
Well, because you're right. I mean, this song title is not in any way abstract.
Right.
It's very direct. Whereas Power of Orange Knickers is abstract.
Yes.
Jesus.
So is their speech.
Fucking stroked out mid-sentence.
Doing performance art over here.
Whereas The Power of Orange Knickers is more abstract. And yeah, it's like with a title like that, you shouldn't be saying it, much less the first words of the song.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. So I get it. And about like 45 seconds, it's funny because I was listening to this, drinking some coffee just early in the morning. And I about a minute in, I'm like, did she just say fuck me to death?
Sure did.
Sure did. Went and checked the lyrics and like that can't be. That can't be.
Repeatedly,
but,
right?
Yeah, it's the chorus.
Right.
Lana Del Rey is another one of those, like, I hear about her all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And I don't know why my natural curiosity didn't get the best of me to be like, I should check it out.
Totally.
But
I was so curious about what you would think about this.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I don't know how I feel about her, so I'm very curious what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, at least for this song is greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay.
I don't think any one aspect of it is outstanding.
Okay.
But I think put together, it's a special kind of song.
Cool.
It's beautifully mixed and arranged. Personal note is I think she's what Tori Amos used to be. I think this is what Tori wants to be, but can no longer be. In terms of the sincerity.
Really good.
And, this is what Tori would sound like current day.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
If she didn't, whatever the fuck happened to her. So this is something where I think I'll just buy the album and get into it. By the way, I got fucked on, who was that last week? The guy with the 3 names.
Caribou.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole album.
Yeah.
Sounds nothing like the one song.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever listened to it.
Well,
thanks for doing the
let me
homework
save it
for me.
$9.99. The rest of the album is more straight up dance.
Okay.
That was the only one that was like atmospheric and
Bummer.
yeah. So
This album, like most of hers, is all over the place, but I think in a good way. I think you'll find. Anyway, we'll see. I've listened to this album in particular a few times, and I really dig it.
okay, this one's new, right?
It's really new. Yeah. Like last few months or so.
Okay. Yeah. So this one, I think it's a long overdue deep dive.
Yeah.
And I will get into that, but very good song, and be listening to that quite a bit in the next few weeks.
Nice.
And number 1 is Hope There's Someone by Anani and the Johnsons.
Oh, nice work, man.
Yeah, you heard me.
Way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you told me Anthony.
Because that's what she
but
was called at the
that's
time.
no longer.
Because that's what she was called at the time. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, fuck you. I finally got one right.
Way to go.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, let someone save my heart, afraid nothing's too holy when I'm tired.
So yeah, my big accomplishment was going to be thinking that was informing E that it was Anani and the Johnsons, but of course he didn't, because I never get to.
It's fine.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I even had to type out the phonetic.
I would have said Anoni probably. So good on you.
That's true.
Yeah.
Thank you. I did. I mean, I looked up a YouTube video how to pronounce it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because Wikipedia, for some reason, maybe I didn't give enough money to Jimmy Wales, but somewhere along the way, they don't publish phonetic little helpers right next to the name anymore in most of these profiles. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
irritating.
Yes.
Quite frankly, it's number 1 because I don't know what to do with it.
I'm, again, so curious what you would have to say about it. You're speechless.
Yes. Because, I think that whenever you are assessing the music of a trans person, it's a loaded thing.
Potentially.
Right?
Sure.
I mean, there's the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, I remember I'm going into this blind, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And as far as I know,
Yeah.
on Spotify, it's Anthony and the Johnsons.
Sure, right.
Okay. So then I'm listening to it, and then I'm reading up on the band.
Uh-huh.
And there's some cognitive dissonance going on where it's, I'm saying there's some confusion because I'm reading up on the band and they're talking about her. Uh-huh. It's her unique voice.
Right,
and I go,
right.
but this sounds like a masculine voice.
Right. Right.
And I'm like, but is this a guest vocalist?
Yeah.
I mean, there's,
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So you're a lot of back and forth.
Sure.
I don't like the voice
Okay.
at all.
Okay.
I think it's a cross between Tiny Tim and Aaron Neville.
I mean, that's a lot of wobble.
It's a lot.
Right.
It's a lot of wobble. It's high pitched.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's unique.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I think I would really struggle to get through an album of that.
Okay. That's fair.
As a one-off, okay. Now, that being said, it's not number 1 purely because I didn't know what to do with it. I mean,
Right.
the lyrics are beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
and the piano breakdown and the vocals are amazing and emotional,
Yeah.
right? So I think, if nothing else, that 2 minutes or 1 minute or whatever it is the best 2 minutes of all these songs, right? It was,
Oh, okay.
of everything on here, it's the only thing that felt transcendent and special.
Yeah. At the end where the music
Yes.
swells. Yeah.
Yes.
That's so
Right.
amazing.
So, and that appears to represent death, I guess.
Oh.
I spent a lot of time on Genius with this one.
Cool.
So, like I said, I'm kind of torn because I think artistically there's maybe a lot of beautiful stuff there, but I just don't like the voice.
Yeah. I get it.
But I'll poke around in there because I'm curious. I mean, if the voice is the gimmick and it's going to be front and center, I might struggle to
Yeah.
like it. But I've heard enough here to at least put the effort in and want
Sure.
to know, maybe it's less upfront or, less prevalent in other songs. I don't know.
And I wonder with repeated listens, does it?
It might.
Because I feel like that's what it did for me. I really love, this is their first album. I really love this album. And I've said, I think on this podcast, I do not like the wobbly where you can't hold
Right.
a note. Again, I don't know if it's the beauty of the lyrics, if it's the instrumental part of it, whatever it is captures me somehow. I mean, her lyrics are fantastic.
Yeah.
They just put out a new album.
Okay.
So I haven't listened to it yet. So,
Okay. Maybe that'll be good album review.
good idea.
Yeah. Coming in season 3.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Cool.
So now we will throw back to you for the 5 that I gave you.
Cool. Let's start at number 5, like where you should.
Right.
Yeah. And it's got to be, I'm going to say number 5 is None of Them Knew They Were Robots by Mr. Bungle. I expected this to be weird because I know enough about Mr. Bungle to know it was going to be weird, but I think I was even taken aback by how weird it was. It's impressively weird.
Yeah.
One of the things I wrote down right away is like, there's no way they could play this live, right? Do you know that they try? Do they perform live? I don't even know if they perform live.
Rarely.
Mr. Bungle. Yeah. Okay.
Rarely.
Okay. Because it's all over the place as far as tempo changes,
Super intricate.
style changes, very intricate musicianship. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a mess, but in a like, I wrote down something like, I'm glad they tried it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like as an artistic endeavor, I like that they tried it. I like that somebody's doing this. Like, let's just try it and see what happens, and maybe it'll be cool.
Right.
I just didn't think it was that cool.
No.
So,
Yeah. I mean, whenever I'm going to give you something like a Mr. Bungle, it's a 5 or 1 type thing.
yeah, absolutely.
And, and that's, I think Mr. Bungle, really all of Mike Patton's projects, probably with the exception of Faith No More, in some way, shape, or form, they exist for that purpose.
Oh,
Right. It's
okay.
let's take an idea and take it to an extreme no one else takes it to and see what happens.
See what happens. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The lyrics I can't make any sense of. And Genius had some description of what they were supposed to be about. And I don't know if I totally buy it.
I didn't even know what they were till today.
Yeah. It's kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
So to describe it for our listeners, it's like a rockabilly-ish song for most of it, but then with weird interstitials, like it's just bizarre.
I'll say if David Lynch joined the Stray Cats.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. I like it. That's really good. So if you're into that sort of thing, either the Stray Cats, David Lynch, or both.
Yeah. I feel like Denise would like this.
Okay.
You know who you are.
Okay. Yeah, so for those reasons, that's my number 5. My number 4 is No Son of Mine by Foo Fighters. So I think one time you described Foo Fighters as like a cheeseburger.
Correct.
This is a very cheeseburger song to me.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's totally fine. If it's on, I'm not changing it. I think that's my bar for if it's a good song or not. Really, is if it's on, am I going to change it or not? Cool riff. I do not like the gospel vocals. I know it's a thing. The gospel-ish vocals. Like I can see why people like it. It doesn't resonate with
you mean
me.
in any situation?
There's not a lot I like it in.
Okay.
And I know that hits you in the. I know that hits you hard.
I'm just curious
Black
if it
Crowes.
was. No, yeah, exactly. I just didn't know if it was you don't like it or you don't like it paired with the Foo Fighters.
I just generally don't like it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a couple examples like, I'm going to date myself here, but like Dave Matthews Stay.
Okay.
I hate it.
Really?
I hate it when they come in.
Wow.
It was so jarring to me.
Huh.
And I get it. And it fits their musical style. I feel more than it fits Foo Fighters.
That's what I was getting at is like, do you just think that Foo Fighters aren't allowed to use it?
No, they could totally use it. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. For sure. So just not crazy about that. The lyrics are vaguely religious, which I couldn't grasp if he is Dave Grohl outwardly religious? No. He wears a cross necklace all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's just sort of a habit thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't tell if it was earnest or if it was just sort of vague generalities about religion. Yeah, that's really it.
Yeah, this one's probably my favorite song on that. That album is largely panned. It's Medicine
Okay.
at Midnight.
I don't know any others.
There's
Was there a single? I'm sure there were singles.
Yeah, it was like Shame. It was
Maybe I know that one.
yeah. It admittedly probably not great. It was my favorite song on that album just because it's the only time that I feel like they get like boozy and loose.
Okay.
You know, it's like
I can hear that.
It's at least a little bit got a little bit of a groove to it, and they're normally not a groove band.
Very true.
Right? So,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So that brings us to number 3, which will be Us by Ice Cube.
Animal instinct, and the white man sitting there tickle pink, laughing at us on the avenue, busting cops at each other after having brew. We can't enjoy ourselves, too busy jealous at each other's wealth, but coming up's just in me. But the black community is full of envy. Oh shit! Too much backstabbing. While I look out the window, I see all the Japs grabbing every vacant lot in my neighborhood. Build a store and sell their goods to the county recipients. You know us.
So I know this song. I had Death Certificate. I was really big into this era of Ice Cube. But as I listened to the song as an adult and knowing what I know about the world, I feel weird for knowing the song and for even listening to it.
I was going to say, this didn't age well.
No.
I'm like, I was excited to give it to you because I'm like, you're going to be conflicted on the messages
I'm
here.
super conflicted about the messaging. And I feel like Ice Cube is contradictory a number of times in it.
Yeah.
It seems like he wants to simultaneously say that the state of black people in America is this because of what white folks have done to us, and also what we've done to us.
Well, yeah, this song is clearly, it's our fault.
Yeah.
Right?
At the beginning, it didn't read to me that way.
Yeah.
It read to me like, we're fucked up because of what you did. But then I feel like as it progresses, it's definitely like, we sell drugs and then don't keep the money in the neighborhood. And it gets really icky for me, like hands off for me, where I don't want to comment on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, at the time, I always viewed it as a very much, that's why it's called Us, right? It's like, don't point the finger. It's, as long as you're taking your money and spending it on drugs or whatever else.
Right.
I think at the time, it was the last song on the album. And I think at the time it was a message of like self-empowerment.
Okay.
Like, we can do this. We got to.
Okay.
But there was so much hate directed at other groups in the song. Mm-hmm. That's what didn't age well, right? It's like, if you're giving this positivity message, it's like, so don't be throwing around epithets for like other minorities.
Yeah. So that was one of the first things I wrote down was an Asian racial slur again.
Yeah, man, we are.
I'm starting to think. I've known you for a long time. It doesn't line up with your belief system, but I don't know.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say about it?
Ice Cube, who apparently now is like full right wing.
Yeah, he's a
idiot.
He's an idiot. Something about vaccine anti-vaxxer. He's all that stuff. Yeah, he's super weird.
Yeah, did you see he did this like interview with Tucker Carlson?
No.
Yeah, they like got in a car and drove around South Central.
Gross.
Yeah,
that's super
gross.
Really unfortunate.
Yeah, funny how when people get money, they tend to,
so brutal.
It's funny.
I wonder what the hip hop community thinks of that.
Tell them what they think about you.
That's right. The beat I really like. It's a familiar beat, and I'm like, this beat has been in 1,000 rap songs. I looked it up. I was wrong. It's been in 879 songs. I looked at who sampled. Anyone that's into hip hop, check out whosampled.com. It's great because they'll, you bring up a song and it'll show you every sample that's included, and then you can hit a button and skip right to the part of the original song that was sampled. So it's really cool. So anyway, This is from Synthetic Substitution by Melvin Bliss, and it's used 879 times.
Jesus.
Songs such as Don't Believe the Hype.
Wow.
Same beat. OPP. Same beat. Bring the Ruckus by Wu-Tang. Potholes in My Lawn. De La. And Mbop.
Really?
It's the beat to Mbop, but it's just sped up in Mbop.
Of course.
So I'm like, why does this beat sound so familiar? It's because it's used all over the place. But yeah, the beat was cool. There's a P-Funk reinterpretation in the chorus with some female singing, which I kind of like. It breaks it up. I couldn't understand what they were saying, so I had to look it up. But yeah, as far as a hip-hop song, it sounds the way I like hip-hop songs to sound. The message left me feeling really like, I don't want to get into all this.
What would have been great is if Eazy-E was still alive. And now that Ice Cube is fully gone, he's become what he was mocking in No Vaseline.
Absolutely.
Would it be great if he was still alive to make a diss track 30 some years later?
Brutal. It would be.
I might do it for you, Easy.
Oh my God.
Don't worry. I got your back.
So with number 2, I'm going to do We Can Get Down by A Tribe Called Quest.
If you don't know me by now, you never know. Stepping on my critics, beating on my foes. The plan is to stay focused, only then I can go. Straight from the heart, I represent hip-hop. I be 3 albums deep, but I don't wanna go pop. Too many candy rappers seem to be at the top. Too much candy is no good, so now I'm closing the shop. Crushing competition like Italians on grapes. My rhyme styles be bending like a Ron G tape. My man, where you going? You can't escape. When the tribe is in the house, it means nobody is safe. I can't ever
We're both nodding our heads in the extended play studios. Fucking awesome song. I love this song.
Yeah.
I love the album. I have nothing bad to say about A Tribe Called Quest. They hold such a special place in my heart for like hip hop and just music in general. They exist in their own bubble of sort of like, I don't know, I've romanticized it. Sure, there's tracks that aren't great on every one of their albums,
Right.
but to me, when I think about it just generally, I'm like, oh, it's bangers from top to bottom.
Right. And Midnight Marauders, the album this is on, really kind of suffered from like being in the shadow of Low End Theory.
Yeah.
Right. Low End Theory was such a massive
Yeah.
thing. And then this came out and it's, you know, it seems like an afterthought, but if it wasn't for Low End Theory, it would have been regarded, it would have been in the pantheon of great rap albums if it wasn't for another one of their albums.
Absolutely. I think it has more. I was looking through the track list. It might have more good songs than Low End Theory does.
It's possible. I think the magic of Low End Theory is there's no filler.
There's no filler. You're right.
There's not one song that you can be like, I wish that was not there.
Yeah, absolutely. They even reference it in the song. They talk about the boom bap, and it's got that boom bap sound that I'm a sucker for in this era of hip hop. I got a Rakim sample, which is fucking awesome. Yeah, and I wrote down. Oh, that's funny. I wrote down just what you said. It's incredible that this album kind of gets forgotten in their pantheon of. Yeah, absolutely. I knew about half the lyrics. Like as soon as I turned it on, I'm like, I don't remember. I remember this, and I kept filling in the blanks. Like I would get like Fife would do the first part of his verse, and I would be able to finish it off. So good, so good.
Like it's amazing. Whenever I'm in the car and Scenario comes on,
Yeah,
I know every word.
every word.
Every word.
I know
And
the
like-
word to the remix too. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So good.
So good.
Absolutely. We were just, my wife and I were just listening to Quest this weekend, and just fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'll explain if I love it so much, I'll explain in a minute why it was number 2 and not number 1. My number 1 is You by REM. So I think the fact that I chose this, it shouldn't be a surprise if you have been listening to this show for any length of time that the new is something I'm really, really interested, right? I didn't know the song. I'd never heard it before, which is exactly why, because it was so novel and hearing the sound, I didn't own this album.
You don't have Monster?
I don't have Monster.
Oh my
the
God.
only REM album I have is New Adventures in Hi-Fi, which is a weird album to have,
It is.
but I liked it.
You don't
enough.
have Automatic for the People?
I don't have any of them. That's
Jesus
the only one I have.
Christ.
I know. I know. And I should like it.
Yeah.
And I think I do. I think if I went back and listened to it, I would love it.
Yeah.
But oh my God, the guitar sound on this is just so exactly in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
There's so much distortion. It's so loud and kind of obnoxious and slow and sludgy, but not. I love that sound. His guitar sound is Peter Buck, right?
Yeah.
His guitar sound is so awesome in this song.
Monster is far and away their biggest guitar-driven album.
Okay. I
Right?
seem to remember that being the thing.
Yes,
right?
because What's the Frequency, Kenneth,
Okay.
and Bang and Blame.
Okay.
Bang and Blame has that huge reverby.
Yeah. Okay. So I can't say enough positive things about the way that the guitar sounds in this song. And it does exactly what I like about a lot of heavy music and shoegaze is the loud, distorted guitars and vocals that seemingly don't match it. Mm-hmm. Like our buddy Jay would say, I can't do this song. He would say, I like probably if he listened to this show, he would say, yeah, I can get down with the guitars, but his voice bothers me because it's too high pitched, and which I think is insane. He expects it to be like whatever gravelly. It would match
Like Rob Zombie.
right, something like that. But that's the magic in this kind of music to me is, the poetic lyrics of Michael Stipe. The sound of his voice is so unique. The way it stands out in stark contrast to the music, it really grabbed me. I can't say enough good things about this song. I really dug it. This song does a thing where it sounds like it's very plotting is not the right word, but it's got this steady rhythm throughout and it really doesn't change. And I was waiting for like there to be a big cymbal crash and for something to happen, and it never did, but I was okay with that. Like the chorus, nothing much changes once they get to the chorus. It's pretty much the same beat and the same riffs. But I was fine with that. The National does this a lot, where the drums are so secondary to to what they're trying to do with the song that they're almost forgetful or forgettable, I should say. But I didn't mind that at all. So yeah, this is a out and out number one for me. This is going on my playlist. I'm going to be listening to this more often, and then moving into the rest of the album for sure.
Yeah, it's a good album. Great album.
Yeah. So I really appreciate this one. I had no idea.
Nice. And that will be a wrap on season 2.
Wow.
I did not know if we would make it a full season, much less 2. Season 2 twice as long as season 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, but we're still going. We're still having a blast.
Absolutely.
And we will be, after about a month or so break here, to enjoy this blistering summer. We will be back for a season 3. We have a lot of new ideas for season 3, and we're going to have some new segments. We'll bring back the stuff you like, but quite a few new things to check out in season 3. We know what our topic to start the season will be. It'll be another epic episode.
Absolutely.
Go back and check out the country one if you did not listen to them. Matter of fact, go back and listen to all of them.
Absolutely.
If you're hearing this, go back. There's some good stuff back there.
Gosh, I can't remember. I say all the time that I can't remember half the things I say on this show. And when I go back and listen, I'm like, oh, that was good. Oh, I remember that one. I get a laugh out of it every time. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of hours of us talking to each other.
Yeah, I know. And it's like smelling your own farts, but sometimes I'll go back to an old episode just to check something, or, do listen to something in the audio, and I end up listening to another hour of it.
By the way, I'm rewriting the tagline as we speak. The Extended Play Podcast. It's like smelling your own farts.
Which, it's true. It's an enjoyable thing no one ever talks about.
For good reason.
Exactly.
As Tank mentioned, we're going to change some things up a bit. We're going to keep a lot of what you like, and we're going to and make a lot of what you like better. One of the ways we're doing that is that we're going to shift responsibilities for the playlist challenge to you, the listener, the extended family. Sort of like as a thank you to sticking with us for 2 seasons and hopefully into the 3rd. The way that you can submit recommendations for the playlist challenge is to email us at contact@extendedplaypod.com. And I don't know about you, Tank, but I'm really looking forward to that. I think that would be fun.
Fuck yeah.
So anything goes.
And we want it to be challenging. Like, don't be an asshole about it. Don't be like, okay, playlist challenge, songs with boysenberry in the title.
Only Latin titles.
Right. Yeah, we'd have like 6 fucking ragtime songs from the 20s. Like, my boysenberry lady.
Which would be fantastic.
Yeah, so make it hard, but not too hard.
That's what she said.
Yeah, I know. I knew if I was halfway done saying it.
Yeah, and as always, if you want to listen to the songs from this playlist, from today's playlist challenge, you can check out the show notes. You can just tap right there, and you can go into a playlist on Spotify or YouTube of the songs we chose for the playlist challenge. We have, and if you go to our website, extendedplaypod.com, or also in the show notes, we have a link to all of our playlists on Spotify and YouTube, so you can check them all out. We have. Early on in the season 1, we did any song that we even mentioned I was putting on playlists. So we have a lot of songs out there. And then, like I said, all the playlist challenges are out there for you to listen to.
Yeah. And if you want to start a discussion or an argument, feel free to put your ideas on the comments on Instagram or anywhere in our socials, just to, see what other people think, maybe get a little back and forth going. And we will also be monitoring that for new ideas or people you think we should have on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to be on the show and you've got something to say,
right.
We're always listening.
Right. Don't forget to follow us on your podcast host of choice. Really helps make sure that our episodes show up in the top of your feed. So as soon as we come out with a new episode, you see it right away. You don't forget to listen. It also helps us with getting new listeners, which we're really excited about. So we appreciate every member of the extended family, all future members of the extended family. And we had a blast this season. We're really looking forward to season 3.